Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I don't know. I mean, interns are the best people. We just have to make sure that we're taking great care of them.
Most people, the word intern often means abuse, and we have to change that.
Yes. Mitch, I know we are thinking about an idea for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. Mask or no mask, it's optional. We can't. It doesn't really say much. It just says it's optional. Maybe we could have shortened it and said it's optional, because then it would be it's optional to listen to the podcast.
Phantom,
no,
can you believe Phantom's actually advertising? The only person in this theater that has to wear a mask is on stage. You know,
is the Phantom. I know it's kind of clever ways to take advantage of marketing.
Unfortunately, it doesn't sit well with a lot of people.
I kicked around a lot of rejected titles. Broadway really cares.
Oh,
Broadway really cares. A Man of No Importance.
Jim Parsons.
Because Jim Parsons is coming to Broadway. The Macy's Fourth Spectacular. But Macy's did not come through with the sponsorship, so we can't name the title. We can't name the.
Well, if we wait for the Thanksgiving parade, we can just stand online and choose our cast from who walks past us. Right? There's so many choices. You get the musicians from the marching bands. You get all the Broadway casts up front freezing their tootsies off.
You.
How they do that in that freezing cold?
Exactly.
I did it once. No, I'm not performing, but I actually managed to show that to Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. It was not fun.
I did enjoy coming from Jersey City, getting off the train right there at Greeley's. Is it Greeley Square? It's like right there.
Yeah,
across from Herald Square.
I just forgot the name, but you're close, but that's not the name. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
No,
it's not Greeley? So. No. Okay. Well, Herald Square, coming up at Herald Square, and seeing all that madness going on now. My other rejected title is Nothing Can Follow Defying Gravity.
Oh, God.
Because apparently, if you care to find me, you'll have to wait for the second part.
You make me feel better about all my options for subtitles, which I keep secret to myself. Yeah.
Oh, Mitch Weiss pays my salary.
Yeah,
I like that one. That one's still in the top 5.
Yeah, if only that were true.
Yeah.
And by the way, anyone listening to this who wants to invest in new theater, I'm here. Send the money.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Send the money to the farm.
We've got some
planting seeds that grow.
Amazing playwrights. We just have no theaters interested in putting on some of these new shows at the moment because they're still working on the shows from pre-pandemic times that have already been contracted. So we're like waiting a year or two before they're going to be up to think of a new season of shows. Anyway.
Yeah, and that was something I was thinking about too. Just in thinking about sharing the scripts, that at this time we are sharing them with the expectation or the assumption that they might consider this for a future season, because now we're in it, and and at the same time, this is a season of uncertainty this will be a season of uncertainty. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said about you know, if there is a consideration for any of these
Again, it depends if you're
scripts, that it
if you're
won't
it
be for
depends on
this
which
season.
theater. Certainly Broadway, if a show closes, they're going to fill that theater, so that could be an opening. But are you ready? You have so much
Mm-hmm.
money to raise. Who's ready with the money? Who's ready with the cast?
Yeah.
But nonprofits, they have to plan far ahead. And if they lose
Mm-hmm.
something, hopefully they had something lined up already that they can immediately throw in there. It's a very different world. But let's be clear.
Yeah.
Again, talking about the commercial world. Well, it's the same, I guess, nonprofit with the artistic directors. The people who decide what
Yeah.
shows we see in the commercial world are theater owners. They're nobody who's artistic. They basically walk around
Mm.
and say, I know you and I know you know how to raise $18 million. So I trust you that you have done that. Therefore, and the show that you did, I saw it in Chicago or I saw it in the West End. So there's very little risk for us because we have to make our rent. And we need to know you're going to pay our leasing costs and pay all our expenses. So those are the
Yeah.
shows that get in. They don't say, "Oh, here's a new show, we like it," right? And that's what we're seeing on Broadway.
No.
So then you go, well, so the nonprofits, if they're doing new work, well, that's what the people on Broadway are going to go visit if they hear great things about it. But if they're not doing new works that haven't already been seen at some other nonprofit, then these people aren't going to come, and it just becomes, how do we entertain the locals? It's a
Yeah.
hard business.
Yeah. And they're not really entertaining the locals. The locals
Right.
aren't the audience. Whereas for nonprofit, the
Well, that's what
locals
I meant.
are
That
the audience
that
when you think
a
about
lot
regional.
of there are a number of nonprofits that I will not name, who will always start with Hello Dolly or Fiddler on the Roof, or because they need to make sure that their locals want to come.
Rocky.
Please, do you think anyone's ever going to do Rocky again? That was such a production.
I
That was
think
an
so.
amazing production.
I'm pretty
Really?
certain there is
Are
at
you
least
really?
one.
Where? I would love to see someone else's interpretation.
um,
I remember my mouth dropping at the Winter Garden Theater.
I bel So Rocky is at the top of Walnut Street Theater's 2022-23
Fantastic.
season.
That
Rocky the musical.
something I think I would visit just to see that. Not because it's a show I want to see. I just want to see someone else do something different with it. If they're doing something different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, Walnut Street Theater was planning Rocky the musical
Well, of
before
course. I said these
this
are
long intermission.
contracted
Um,
pre-pandemic, most of these shows.
yeah. But then they're following it up with Cinderella, which
Boring.
come come for the magic, stay for the costume changes. It's all about the costume changes. You remember when we were at the what which theater was that
In
we
New
saw
York, the
Cinderella in?
Broadway Theater.
The Broadway theater,
Mm-hmm.
with Kiki Palmer as Cinderella and Sherry Shepherd as
Yeah.
the Wicked Stepmother.
Yep.
Was it? Yeah, as the Wicked Stepmother. Yeah, I just remembered seeing like all the action going back and forth on the stage as these transitions happen, and yeah, so
Right.
that's what we came for. We need to
Yeah.
see this
Are you
smock
sure
turn
it's not
into a
going to be Andrew
beautiful
Lloyd
gown.
Webber's new Cinderella? He has been. I mean, he went so crazy in London saying,
And
the hell with the pandemic, the hell with vaccines. I don't care if everyone in the audience gets sick. I am putting my Cinderella, on a stage in the West End, and you will come see it, and you will act in
No,
it. And I don't
it
care if you get
says
COVID, we're still putting the show on. He went crazy. And then the show closed.
it says it's a yes. It says it's a new book by
Who I
Douglas Carter
happen to
Bean.
like his writing, tongue in cheek. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
have to
so we'll
see.
see.
Well, I'm not going.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's just not going to
Um,
happen.
yeah. Okay, so as we are having this chat, it is the end of we are June is wrapping up. Uh, July 1st turns over. Fiscal
Mhm.
year for many arts and cultural organizations, and Broadway becomes mask optional
Right.
at that
There,
time.
there are a couple of theaters that
So,
have, not the theaters per se, but the producers who have elected to keep masks mandatory, but just a couple.
hmm,
Um,
yeah,
I'm guessing
yeah,
that since the summer is a very slow time for theater, that they are thinking we
hmm,
can't afford to send anybody away. And right,
and
and
move
my
all
thing
boundaries.
is, well, you've sent me away because I'm not going to sit in the audience with someone who doesn't care about my health. That's my personal thing. I understand there are people who don't agree, but people are still getting COVID and shows are still shutting down because of it. A lot of them. There are actually two shows just this week that were in previews for Broadway, and all of a sudden they're not performing for an entire week because they're not ready to replace the cast that had caught COVID. So if that's still going on, why are we letting
Yeah.
the audience in?
Well,
I don't
yeah.
get
I
it.
mean, that is yes, and everyone's hitting. I mean, if Sutton
Yeah,
Foster can,
and that's not even the new ones
Sutton
that are even the
Foster gets
new ones.
COVID,
They're
everyone has
throwing
COVID.
money. They could be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars at the beginning of the run before they know whether they have a hit because
Mm.
they had to shut down. It's crazy.
Just timely because of how ridiculous Washington is. You can say that this mask policy is
Ooh,
pro-choice.
you went there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but when you think about it, it's not saying that you can't wear a mask. So, this isn't really a problem. It's sort of an adjustment. So if someone doesn't want to wear a mask, something tells me that I don't know. I feel like if a family, sitting together, they might on the one hand feel like they're all together so they don't have to wear a mask, but then they'll realize they're
Well,
around other people
not just
and they
not
might
just
want to wear that
around
mask
them. See,
anyway.
if there were the 5 or 6 feet away from strangers, we talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But they are within 2 feet.
Yeah.
It's like being in a crowded elevator without masks on. You don't know who's a carrier.
Yeah.
And I don't. This is me personally. It's
Well,
my opinion. And obviously the
yeah.
producers made this decision. They did not check with any of the unions on Broadway. Actors Equity immediately
Oh, I
they
yeah, I saw
immediately
that
said,
post.
"No one told
Equity
us this
was
was going to happen."
we were
That's
not
right.
consulted about this mask optional policy. I don't know what you talking about, Broadway League,
And if
but
anything,
you could have picked up the phone, gave somebody a call
the
over
thing that's
here.
going to keep the audience coming during the summer is drop your prices. I'm sorry, $200,
Yeah.
$300 a ticket for a decent seat,
Yeah.
and you're telling me that, oh, we're going to encourage people to come in just because they don't have to wear a mask. I'm
Yeah.
somebody's not. It's like Washington D.C. You're right on the money. There just are too many arguments to be made for. We have to think this a little more carefully instead of just making arbitrary
Mm-hmm.
decisions. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like you know, why not sell a mask Why not sell a
Or
show mask?
as they used
Encourage
to
more
do
people to
even
buy
in
that mask.
airplanes, they had smoking sections, which of course was ridiculous. You were in a
Mm,
tight spot and the smoke went everywhere.
yeah.
But say
They
there's a
should
no
say
mask
they should
section.
say fine. It's it's mask
Yeah,
optional in the
absolutely.
nosebleeds. If you want to sit all the way up top, you can
That's
do
right.
whatever you want. We don't
We've got
care.
the air
Just keep
conditioning on high up there, and it's
try to keep
filtered
it
out of the building.
exactly.
You know,
See, it's justified. But I wonder if this policy is just to say, we've done the properness for ventilation. There, this it. The theaters are high ceilings. Like there is a lot of air circulating through here. So even though,
I'm going to let you
I
dig
always
your
think about
own ditch on this one because you,
what I'm always thinking about, what are the actors? I mean, like, what is the situation that the actor is in that, the day before they are testing negative and
yeah,
now they're
well,
testing positive?
but they
Like,
don't talk
is there
about the
something about,
stagehands, the
is there,
musicians, the wardrobe people. They test positive too. They just don't make the newspaper. And the show goes on. They bring in a
yeah.
sub. But for an actor, they'll
Hmm.
probably shut the show down because, or well, that's not true. Sutton Foster's out, and the
Well,
show goes
because,
on.
and you're coming for Sutton Foster. You're like, and what if, what if Sutton Foster was out same time that
Well, you
Hugh
can get your
Jackman
money
was out?
back, but you have to
Like,
know to ask. If you don't
yeah.
ask, they're not going to offer it.
Well,
You can. It's policy.
yeah.
Something people should know. You know?
Yeah, and see that's why there needs to be a greater push for a local audience, because maybe, um, we got the thing that's interesting about a commercial theater is you're not coming to the Winter Garden Theater because it's the Winter Garden
Right. It's
Theater,
for sure.
you know. You're coming because there's a show in there. You don't care who the production manager, who
Mhm.
the general manager is of whatever's in here, or who's involved really
What?
behind the scenes. Like, and you might have a moment where you're looking at the playbill, going, "Oh,
Well, by the
so
way,
and
that's a
so."
great topic you just brought up because the statistics are showing, and again, part of it's the pandemic, that fewer and fewer people are interested in buying a subscription to nonprofits when they have a full season. And it
Yeah,
comes down to, and I'm one of these people, I don't know what my schedule is going to be like, my work schedule. So I can't guarantee that I
yeah,
know on this particular Thursday, 4 months from now, that I'm going to be available to see a show. It comes down to, is the show something I'm interested in? That is the bottom line for everything. And if
yeah.
you have enough of those shows, people might want to buy a subscription the next year to save some money. But for the most part, most people are going, hey, they got seats. I'll be able to buy a seat in there. You know?
Well, also thinking about like, there are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
flex passes now. Like, if you're a 3, 4, 5 show season, you can buy a flex pass, and that just means you are locked in for all the shows, but you still have to let us know when you want to come, and that is still just
That's
saying,
right.
"Can we hold your money right now? Can we hold it?" And in order to hold your money right now, we got to love you. So if you are an organization that is primarily promoting the production itself, it might be a hard sell for the subscription, because it's like, but the subscription is propping you up, the organization. It's not really locking me into the show, because I can decide to go see the show whenever I want to. What if you're someone who has a mindset of, like, I know they have a rush, so I will keep
Mm-hmm.
my eyes open for the rush, and take advantage of that when it's convenient, because that allows me to be more flexible and not feel like if I miss this altogether, I'm going to be a loss. Or what if you're a traveler
Well, what I
and you're
hear
going to
you
be out
saying,
during
which
this
I
whole
think is
run?
it, is different strokes for different folks. You need to have as many options. One of the
Yeah, yeah,
From my early days, there was only
yes.
one place you could buy a ticket to a Broadway show, and that was at the box office. We did not have the
Mm-hmm.
internet. When the internet started, and we didn't have the
Yeah.
TKTS half price ticket booth in Times Square for day
Hmm.
of tickets. None of that existed when I first started in the theater. So as they started adding and adding, they realized the more places you can buy a ticket, even though it costs the theater or the show money to allow these places to take a percentage out for their fees, uh, the more options you have, the more tickets they were able to sell. So, the bottom line
Yeah.
still comes down to, if you don't feel safe, which has to do with New York in general, even though we're having less crime than we had many years ago, it's getting more publicity right now. And so
Yeah.
people are thinking, maybe I don't want to go. Then you have the theaters where they're packing them in, they're stuffing them into those small seats. Not every theater, by the way. Some of the newer theaters are gorgeous and they're very comfortable. But the older theaters, they have added
Yeah.
seats to make more money. That means you're shoulder to shoulder with someone who may not be wearing a mask. So you add that to it. And plus, it's uncomfortable wearing a mask
True.
for 2 hours if that's what you have to do. On and on and on. There are more and more reasons. And then the show may not be that good. And you spent
Yeah.
$150 or $200, and you had to do parking, and you had to buy tickets, buy a meal for your family. This has always been the problem on Broadway. We just now have a pandemic
Mm-hmm.
to add to it, and high ticket prices.
Yeah.
I want to embarrass myself.
Yeah. If you
The
can't.
orchestra seat for a chorus line when it opened on Broadway, $15.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's
Ugh.
inflation, but that's
Ugh.
extreme.
You
Can't
can't
go
even get a
standing
preview
room.
ticket for $15 now.
Standing room,
No.
$35 and $40 now for standing room. That's embarrassing.
Yeah. But the
You
expenses,
know
they keep
what?
going up.
They And this is going to be my personal argument, and nobody wants to hear me. But I will say it. When you have a hit, you have plenty of money to reduce your prices. When you have a flop, it doesn't matter what you're charging; you're
Yeah.
losing all your money. So, uh,
I know. Could Hamilton afford to be
yes,
free right now?
and they are, by the way, they offer full performances for students. They have charity events,
Yeah.
but they also have investors, and we live in capitalism. So the investors go, "Oh
Yeah.
no, you're not giving away my profit." Or, but I still think they should. There should be more ways to see it, and it's not. It's years in. Anyway,
We know you need money. Pick up the phone. Don't be afraid of kerching, kerching.
I live for those musical moments from you, Darnell.
Sell us your soul. Just kidding.
But look at
We're
this. We are
waiting.
losing at least two, if not more. We're losing two amazing long running shows because, in my opinion, unnecessarily. Meaning, Come From Away, which is
Hmm.
just one of the most joyous things you'll ever see on Broadway, and Dear Evan
Yeah.
Hansen,
Really
which
enjoyed it.
is one of those emotional moments that isn't just a coming of age story. It is, I mean, the movie was
Yeah.
terrible, forgive me, but the stage play is not. The
Yeah,
stage
and
play worked.
that is what's so interesting about that. The movie, not great. And the moments that were most impactful on the
That's
stage
right.
just did not
Oh,
carry on the screen, even though they had
Chorus Line.
more
Chorus
opportunity
Line, the movie,
there.
I'm sorry. I find it worthless.
And they added us. Yeah.
It's, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
that's such a shame. Then that happens. Then again, you get
No more
Chicago
blue
and,
shirts.
and
Well,
Cabaret, and you give it to a new writer to write the screenplay, and they make it work.
So it's leaving Broadway,
Yeah,
Dear Evan Hansen. But do you think it'll have you
I
think it'll
hope
have a
I
sustainable
hope
life?
so.
How long do you think it'll sustain
I
in the
think it
touring
has.
circuit?
It may be a regular, consistent touring show. It should be. I think it's pretty special. It depends
Yeah.
what the production looks like because part of what makes it work on stage is the flow of scenery and sound, and the scenes kind of feel a little cinematic, and it's emotional. As opposed to we are going to talk a lot at you. So I
Do you think once it gets to touring it has to be gimmicky in order to sell? Like there has to be something here that was different from, this isn't the Broadway cast, this isn't the original cast, so there has to be something like Rent, for example. Like after so many years touring, it was called Rent Now at one point. All the tours were different. Like there was an Angel tour, there was a Benny tour, and it's just these things were they had slightly different elements, but all the things that diehards who would go to see it, those had to be there. But do you think they have to have some kind of element, or is it just like, hey, remember that show you loved on Broadway? Well, it's coming to your town, and it's
Oh,
just
I don't know.
convenient now,
I
and
would
that's
throw it
that's
back
why
at
you're
you
coming to see it.
to see your answer. My guts are. I mean, look at Company. They totally revamped it and made it a gimmick to give it new life
Mm,
after at 50 after 52 years, right? Open 1970. So sometimes you need to do it, and sometimes you don't. Um, it's mostly what people know. Beauty and the Beast can go anywhere because everyone knows the movie. So they say, "Oh, when we go see the play, we're going to assume we know what we're going to see." Dear,
I'm just thinking about, if they were to tweak Company again to reach
mhm.
a current audience, it would say,
Go ahead.
"Phone on silent, in comes Company."
Uh, Adorable.
Because phones
That's
don't ring
right.
anymore; they barely vibrate, and
Well, and by the way, the younger people that see these things get confused. They they don't know a lot of
yeah,
what used to happen. They don't know the artists. We'll
mm,
go and see somebody. Oh my God, she's still alive, and they go, who? They don't know. They're not
yeah,
there to see that person, right? And Come From Away is about
yeah.
the day after September 11th, the day after. And there, I'm embarrassed to say it. I know two teenagers who don't know what 9/11 is. Now it's only two,
Mm, mm.
but time changes it. You look at how to succeed in business without really trying. That's a
Without
Pulitzer
really
Prize
trying.
winning musical. Pulitzer. It's
Hmm.
embarrassing.
And my
That is
favorite.
it really your favorite? You're kidding.
It is. Yeah, it's like that, that 60s style, that Fosse, that Morse. Like I just remember, you know, I watched, I didn't see a lot of the musicals I saw on
Wow.
Netflix first. I had to, because, they weren't available. So I had to go find everything that was available. So it
Right.
was like movie musicals. And I just remember falling in love with that. Um, and I like the scenic design of of it. It's kind of simplistic, but it sort of looks like
Mhm.
game show all the time. It kind of has that The Price is Right sort of feel to it. But I love that office setting too, which I guess was kind of the draw to Mad Men, which also featured Morse as well. It was the same sort of time frame. It was the same time frame, and I don't know. I like the whole aesthetic of how to
But it
succeed
is
in business
so
without really trying. And
Supreme Court to 2022, isn't it? I mean, the way I know some of the women who were in the original
Well,
production, and they're
yes.
embarrassed that they agreed to do what they were asked to
Well,
do.
but
Right?
yes, but this reminds, but this is like this. This is why art and eh, art and entertainment, like they are escapes. They don't have to check everything,
That's
doesn't have to
correct.
check a box from what's going on outside in the world. And I think people forget that there is a balance. You don't want, so for instance, like um theater exile is known as a gritty kind of passionate organization. The artistic vision is always like something that's gritty and something you can sink your teeth into. That's not the the most like uh,
Hmm.
bright and summery thing. It's going there's going to be some hard truths in here that you're going to walk away like with a lot of thoughts. You're just going to feel when you walk out of there. But sometimes you might think about that season and say, I don't know if this is what I want to digest right now. But then at the same time, it's like, don't you want to balance? Like, everything can't be the high action music, the high energy musicals. Some of these things you
Of
want to sort
course.
of diversify, and that's why we go to so many different theater companies, because of what they have to offer, and they're so consistent about it. And that's why you're saying, like, okay, so, and I don't think I've ever really thought about, today I'm going into the depths,
Yeah.
with this company because of their artistic aesthetic. I say that I know that I'm going in here to really think deeply about what they brought to the stage. Whereas over here, this is going to be a vibrant escape. It's going to be fun. It's going to be feel goody. But I'm not actively
Yes.
curating my experience like that, and maybe some
But we're
people are.
theater nerds. There
But
are
I
people who
love
will
the fact
see
that
one
there's so
show a
much
year
variety.
if they can find the time. And they're the ones though who will keep the
Yeah,
shows commercially viable. The rest of us, there's a limited
yeah,
number who will say, I'm going to see 30 shows this year. And amongst that, I do want to see some
yeah.
frivolous, the play that went wrong. Make me laugh my butt off,
Hmm.
right? Yeah,
By the way, 1812 Productions is adding the play that
excellent.
goes wrong to their season. I'm
We
so
know it's just
excited.
wonderful, and
I'm so excited. If anybody can do it,
Jersey Boys was
1812
one of
can.
those musicals that I just said it may be, I don't need to hear the Four Seasons music, but it works in the storyline. I was enthralled. I had a great time. I wanted to see it again. Come From Away never convinced me to want to go see it. And I happened to see it, and I
Mm,
walked out going, I must have been really stupid. This is the best thing I've seen in a long time. Um, and I don't know how they sell something like that because it's a serious topic, but it's just an absolutely joyous show based on a tragedy. You
yeah.
know, it actually
Hmm.
makes you believe people are good, and I don't know how we believe that.
I also really enjoy moments that are kind of like a standstill, and we're just sort of in it with them,
Mm,
like the band's visit. I didn't know what to think when I got in it, but I walked away from that saying, I loved that.
yeah.
Um, and of course, there were like key songs that really stood out for most, But I just remember saying, like,
Well,
yes,
and
yeah,
then you go,
yeah.
well, do we really need to see Daniel Craig in Macbeth? And the issue is, well, one, Macbeth we know is a great piece of writing, and it has been done a million different
Mm,
ways. You talk about gimmicks. This is a gimmick show that with the one that's on Broadway. First of all, Daniel Craig is the reason people buy tickets. No one needs to spend $200 on Macbeth. So you're spending it on Daniel Craig. And he may be a wonderful actor, which is great, but what they do with it, does it make you happy? Does it not make you happy? Does it give you new insight? Does it not? I'm not going to, answer that. For everyone's going to have their own opinion.
That is kind of interesting too, because you were able to support Daniel Craig by going to see a Bond film, and you
That's
didn't
right.
spend a fraction of the money you're
Yeah.
spending on this stage, and you still thought what you thought about him. But now, in order to support him, it's going to be $200, and the only reason it costs this
Yeah.
much is
And
because
he's
he's in it.
live. And then he gets COVID. Well, he didn't. Let's not start rumors. But, you don't know
Yeah,
what's going to happen. Right. And it, the great thing about theater, and it's not certainly not just Broadway, is the variety. You said it exactly right. Is that one day, and there are people who will not see Rent because there are bad words in it. I know families that won't let their kids go see it.
mm.
And Hair, people used to walk out after the nude scene, but they would wait to make sure everybody was nude, and then
Mm.
they'd be disgusted and walk out of the theater. It's like there's we have many different reasons to go to the theater. And some people just need escapism. Some people go for the intellectual stimulation. And perhaps the best is when it combines the two. And that's what you're always hoping for. I think Hamilton
Yeah,
is that. It combines both, right? Um, and that's what you're always hoping for.
yeah.
So, what?
Do you think it? Speaking of Hamilton, well, in that vein, do you think Encanto is going to be a musical?
Disney, it's interesting. I'm waiting to see whether Disney theatricals has um, taken its last hurrah. Um,
Mm.
Disney sees Broadway, in my humble, less than humble opinion, sees Broadway as a merchandising tool. So to open a show
Mm.
like Frozen and not get good reviews and not run it for a long time and for them to lose money on the show, they don't lose money because they're making it with international
Yeah.
productions, with selling dolls, with selling cast recordings, with more people wanting to see the movie. There, Disney has figured this out, right? A Come From Away doesn't have a
Mm.
theme park. A Dear Evan Hansen doesn't have a theme park. So Disney is in a class by itself. I don't know. Encanto probably is on their radar to turn into a Broadway musical. I wouldn't be surprised. It doesn't mean they're going to.
Relive the movie. Stay for the counterpoint.
And like Lin Manuel needs to make $1 more than he already makes.
Oh, did I tell
What?
you? I
Oh
told
yeah, that
you.
you were
I sent
there.
you a text. I was in the I was in the drama bookshop. I was in the
Let's tell
drama
people where
bookshop
it is.
this weekend. The drama bookshop is on
Between
39th Street.
right
Is
between
39th, right? Between
8th.
7th and
And just so
8th.
people understand,
7th and
there
8th
used to be
Avenue.
multiple bookstores that specialized in theater, and now there's only one.
Yeah, like Shakespeare
Well,
and
not and
Company,
they
and
didn't do much. I mean, they were
um
still basically a bookstore.
well they but they
There was
but then there was
applause,
one location where you went downstairs and they had a
yeah,
huge
yeah, but for the most
theater
part, we're
section.
down to one really
Yeah.
real theater bookstore, and that's now Drama
Yes.
Bookshop.
And when you go to the drama bookshop, you have to look at the bookworm. It's an amazing installation throughout the whole space. And if you start in the front of the
That's
store,
right.
you will very clearly see a copy of The Business of Broadway by Mitch Weitz and Perry
Very
Gaffney.
honored.
And every time I looked at it, I was like, was this shoehorned in here? This looks like it was
Yeah,
placed here. Like it
yeah.
was not a
I
part of
snuck
the
in. I
original
snuck in at
bookworm,
night
but it
and
was
slid it in
shoved in
there.
there.
Yeah,
I know I had to have seen it before. Okay, so The story is I was in the drama bookshop because I can't go to New York without going to you know, but I can't go to the New York without going to the drama bookshop, and I do miss the loyalty card that they used to have. So they haven't brought it back
Hmm.
yet. So please bring it back because I want a reason to buy unnecessary amounts of scripts that I probably don't need and really won't read. Um, but I was in there. I'm checking out at the counter. I flash my card and I look to my left and I see a man, a youngish man wearing a newsy cap, wearing a Hades Town T-shirt, and wearing a mask, of course. So I made direct eye contact, and then I immediately looked at who they were with. There was a woman and a young child, and I couldn't sort it all out in my head until I finished ringing out, and I sort of walked away from the register, and I saw um, another customer who looked at me and said, "I know," and I realized it was Lin Manuel Miranda. He literally just walked right by, like no fanfare, no nothing. And it's funny because when you're in the drama bookshop, at least for me, all I could think about was In the Heights and Hamilton. I wasn't even thinking about
Yeah.
Disney, you know? I was just thinking about In
Well,
the Heights and
take it a step
Hamilton
further.
and,
I
a
always
little bit of
wonder,
Bring It On.
do you think they give the co-owner of the drama bookshop a discount? He's the reason that store
Well, I'm
reopened.
sure.
It's his money that opened
Yeah.
that store after the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Well, I don't. Well, he went to the cafe section. They were ordering pastries, and then everybody's just standing around. And so I went to the associate and I said, "How do people normally respond when he walks in?" She said, "Pretty much like this. Um, People become less helpful when he's here." And I said, "I get it." I said, "But it was just like, yeah, like, what do you say? Like, you're just thinking about everything you love that he put out into the world, and like, you don't want to be that person, but at the same time, you're not throwing
He
away your shot." But I
starts
totally
singing
threw away my
Bruno. He
shot.
starts singing
Totally threw
Bruno.
away my shot. I
The whole
went
store
outside.
breaks out into Bruno.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, we should have done that. Uh, but what was really funny about that is I posted online that I was at the drama bookshop. I saw Lin Manuel Miranda, and I did not say hello, so I threw away my shot. And then one of my friends posted and said, "That's so funny because here's what my friend posted today. Hey, I just met Lin Manuel Miranda today, like 4 hours ago, and apparently his friend was there in the bookshop as well." So, but he said something to him. I just wasn't in the position. Like, it was clearly I was wrapping up, about to leave, and I would have had to you know, I would have had to go back
Hmm.
into everything to to just annoy him with his family, and I didn't want to do that. And I was just like, there's a part of me that's like, we were just talking about how it's still unbelievable that we actually know people on Broadway. We know people who are in these shows, and we feel so great about it. Like, earlier, I that day we got to see a Strange Loop for my partner and I's birthday, and the stage manager of the show, not production, but the stage manager of the show, Cherie Tay, is a U Arts alum and stage managed a show for me way
Cool.
back when, way back when. And so we were able to touch base with them after the show. And that was a great moment. But it was like, I wasn't, you know, we took a picture and I was like, wow, this is so great to see, your career is where it is right now. And remember that I have a very tiny connection to you. And then later on, you see Lin Manuel Miranda walk through as well. And it's just like, what
Hmm.
is this
It's
life?
and my
To just
favorite stories.
be
My
around
my
people and not
my
have to make such a
the
big
first
deal out of
time
it.
it kind of like I had to pinch myself when I realized that when I was working this show and then the next show and the next show, I was seeing celebrities naked in their dressing rooms. And I'm going, huh? You know, you kind of walk away, you're doing business. You walked in there, they don't care. And
Yeah.
they're, getting your, and then you walk away and say,
Hmm.
really? How could I prove that to anybody that I just saw so and so naked?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And it's
no.
not that you're trying to do anything, but you just realize like this is access that everyone is not privy to, so that
Mm-hmm.
is what's going on in your head. It's not really the fact that you're seeing them undress. It's just this is a moment that was not designed for the masses. And how are you the one with
Mm-hmm.
access at this moment, and how is everybody around you, like, everybody around you is, it's all normalized in that. And that's something that when you think about it, you're just like, wow, I'm very happy with my
Well,
life.
but
I'm
I
very
think
happy
that's
to
part
be
of
where I
the
am.
excitement of seeing a celebrity on a stage versus the movie, and the reason you will spend more to see it,
Yeah.
because there's something about saying, "Oh, he's shorter than I remember. I thought," or she's fatter than she looked in that
Yeah.
movie, or whatever, or her hair color. How'd they get it to be red? I thought her hair was blonde. It doesn't matter. You're both looking at the show and an image of an iconic
Hmm.
person that you take with you, and there they are being human right in front of you.
Hmm. Oh yes, and that's really what it was about Lin Manuel Miranda. Like,
Just human.
he's just human.
That's it.
I'm sure he walked there. Did he? It's not a car. I don't know if a car dropped him off and said, "I'll be right here to get you." He just walked. He walked in. Of course, it's
Yeah.
it's his place. He's all over it. But to just walk in very casually and just, we're just coming here to get a pastry. We love the pastries here. Like, really? Everybody else came here to convince themselves they want all these books that the staff has recommended, you know. But you're just coming in to get a
Yeah.
pastry or something. Um, yeah, but it was a nice moment. But before we start to wrap up, um, we should note that there are updates to the business of Broadway that'll be going out around the same time that this episode is live. And do you want to touch on any of the
It's
contents of
a
these updates?
wide variety of topics this month. Anywhere from the fact that for the first time, I think it's in 4 or 5 years, the custodians and the ushers and the people who were in the theater world were like the nurses were to the medical world during the pandemic. These people, they had to clean way more than they ever thought their cleaning job had to be, and they kept this stuff open. They haven't received a raise in so long. They just got one. It had to be negotiated, it had to be
Hmm.
fought, even though they were our heroes. So that's one thing. But the other
Huh.
version, the other part of this is the shows that are closing. July 4th is usually a big time for shows to close on Broadway. So there explains, especially
Hmm.
after the pandemic and after the Tony Awards, how that all plays with each other. So it's a little bit discussion of that. And one of the things that I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with, and I don't have any of the answers for, is what the new normal is going to be. I think we've lost a lot
Hmm.
of opportunity to be taking the world, the way that we put theater on, whether it's a small nonprofit or it's the biggest house on Broadway. That is it only about money, or is it only about community? Is it only about getting foundation grants? Is it only about what What about the audience? Are the seats smaller? Are they larger? How uncomfortable can they be? How long does it take a writer who has talent to find a place for their show anywhere? Has any of this
Mm.
changed? And will it change? And then you add, of course, all the diversity and inclusion issues, and we see it on stage. How are we seeing it behind the scenes? How long is that going to take to change? How many stagehands? How many electricians? How many designers? You know, who some of them are now starting to get work, but they're not making a living. They're not making a living
Less than
wage.
two.
That's the other part of it. Even on Broadway, they're not making a living wage because they have one show.
Yes.
And, anyway, how do we change this without, look, the people who lay out $20 million for a musical, they deserve their money back and profit. They laid it out. But the people who worked on it
Mm.
for the 5, 6, 7 years to keep it fresh and to keep it worth someone paying that kind of money to go see, they're worth it too. So how do we balance that? Anyway, I don't have the answers to this. I mean, I do have opinions, always do, but that's part of what the updates are about. Right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And
oh, there's one other
those
thing
will
I do
be
want to bring up. There is
those
one
will
thing
be
in
in the
there, in that
feed
the
as they always are.
shows that high schools are doing don't relate in any way whatsoever to the shows that are on Broadway right now. The
Hmm.
shows that are being done the most. It's a very interesting list, and that's in the updates also.
Yeah. Huh. And so, what do you think? What do you think is
A
the
number of
reason
things. I
for that?
remember a long time ago, I also taught in the public schools. Part of it was you're trying to find a show with a certain size cast, with certain balance of men and women,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps ethnicities, if that's what your school has, um, that matches a theme that the parents aren't going to throw a fit about, and that hopefully everyone's going to want to come see. So that the school makes its, a couple of bucks at the auditorium. Uh, you sit around, you go, well, I read this show that has nothing to do with anything that's famous, but it has the right number of people, and some of the songs are okay, or maybe it's a classic. I don't know. I think teachers just sit around looking for things that are appropriate, and so
Mm.
that may be it.
They're like, how do I put 18 people on stage
That's
without
yeah.
anybody feeling bad about not being cast? You're going to be part of the ensemble. We think you'll be great
Yeah,
there.
and can you do sound at the same time, please? And I need a prop person while you're singing.
Yeah. Well, looking at that list, well, yeah, maybe not on Broadway, but looking at that list, there are some things getting definite attention right now. On the musicals, for
Yeah.
instance, Little Shop of Horrors, and Into the Woods, and
Mm-hmm.
Newsies.
Well, Newsies. Here's an issue with Newsies.
Yeah.
I would love to hear how many schools have most of what's supposed to be only boys as Newsies because that's all they allowed politically in those days, and how many of them are packed with only
Mm.
girls playing all the Newsies because the boys won't come out for theater, right? You don't know. I'd be
Oh,
fascinated to hear that. You know?
yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe
Yeah.
you look at the Jimmies
There's so
and
many
see.
talented people out there. And where do they go? Because they all have
Yep.
dreams.
Well, and yes, and that's the thing. It's like, don't you see? Where do you think this pipeline comes from? Like, I think that's why it's so valuable for every celebrity to talk about how they got their start in
Yeah, but
theater in high school and
they
middle school and
omit
so
the
on. And
part that I find important, which is what did I do in between? Did I just trip over this, or did I take a risk and live on the streets? Or did I have parents that made sure I had a $2,000 a month apartment in Brooklyn and I didn't have to work?
yeah.
Or,
Hmm.
or did it take me 18 years to get my first job on Broadway and I worked at a diner that the rest of the time? These are the things that kids, I think, need to hear, not because it should stop them from wanting to do theater, but it tells you, hey, guess what? You're not a failure along the way. It's just part of the process.
Yes. Well, that's what I like about the educational offerings of regional theater companies, because those allow, you know, those coming up to see that this creativity can be applied in
Right.
numerous
Right.
amount of ways, and it gives them options. It's like, sure, you'd love to be a part of that big show, but we also went through this whole process of building a
Mm-hmm.
play from scratch, or you know devising a musical from idea to opening night, and you got to experience that process sans the money woes, but you could see how all of this is done so that you can understand the other parts of the other ways to be a part of this community in the future. Because you know I don't know who says I knew I wanted to be a
Right.
dresser at 8.
Right. Exactly.
you know no one says that. It's like, it's just interesting how I want to know about that journey too, because those are valuable roles. And I have always loved wigs. You ask anyone who knows me, I was always prancing around in a wig.
Well,
So
and you know what? And but
that's why
I want to do a
I'm the
shout
master
out
of wigs.
to a costume designer who just won the Tony Award for Lincoln Center's Thornton Wilder's play, or Skin of Our Teeth. Skin of Our Teeth. He just won the Tony. His name is Montana Blanco, and he went to college to play oboe. Then he went to
Mm.
graduate school. Oh, I'm sorry. He did a double degree with history. Then he went to graduate school for law. And then all he wanted to do was theater. And with all of that background, he ends up a costume designer, which he had no training for. And he wins the Tony Award. I mean, the man is a delight. He is talented. He and I, we both graduated from the same college, which is what I had my connection with.
Well, this, but this shows you, like, you have to live. You need to live your life, have so many different avenues and options, and those sometimes realizing that there's so many things that you love and there's so many directions that you can go in,
Mm-hmm.
it may actually help you take comfort in the path that may not be the easiest path. Like, this may not have been the easiest path, but because of that foundation that he built through his education, may have given him the support that he
Well,
needed, the
one of the
comfort
great
to
things
actually
about
pursue
theater
this. And
folk is and I don't want to make this generality because there are stupid people everywhere, but for the most part, they're fun and they're intelligent, and you can have a conversation with them, and they have talents and skills.
Mhm.
It's not just one or the
Yeah.
other, and some of them are just come out of nowhere, so that you're not all the same people,
Mhm.
right? And it's a very exciting world.
Yeah.
However, financially, you struggle. Most people struggle, but
Well, history and a law
well,
degree means
yeah. I'm sorry. Go
you
ahead.
understand how we got here, and you can legally produce a show
Yeah.
with your background in law. You definitely understand those parts. And that's the thing too. Like, um, you know, uh, there might be someone in the union who doesn't really understand everything
Hmm.
about the union, but if their background was in a multitude of things that actually touch on some of the requirements of being in the union, they might have better understanding of that, or they might think about more things. And I think it's possibly a conversation that is missing at a level, at an educational level, that isn't uh, making clear the value of having diverse interests and knowledge base. You know, um, because you never know how you can bring all that in. Like, there are writers who were doctors, and who were doctors for as long as they were doctors, and then decided to be writers. I mean, decided to pursue writing, and then wrote about their time as a doctor. And that's something like you can't get that
Yeah.
knowledge unless you live that experience. So we have to think long term about the goals that we have. And when you're young, especially at the high school level, college, thinking about what you want to do, the path you want to be on, like, it's not really. You
Yes.
still need more time.
Yes.
And but yeah, you have to have that understanding that these are stepping stones. And so this is a foundation. So what do you want your foundation to be? So if your foundation is the arts, you're going to bring the arts into everything else you do. If the foundation is finance, you're going to be bringing that acumen into everything you do next, and so on. Just like law and history, you're going to do a deep dive on
Hmm.
everything and anything that you end up being involved in the future. So, we just have to I guess we have to remind ourselves that there's some value in having all of that, and not just seeing ourselves as
Well,
one
and
note,
again,
you know,
especially
uh,
people in the theater,
contain
we
multitudes.
hear everybody going to therapists, and actors are a bit crazy, or people are very insecure, or they uh, that's a big one in the theater, whether you're being backstage or not. And
Mm,
part of that is we are exploring ourselves in a way that allows us to bring it to the art form, and we're allowed to fail, which is the
yeah.
idea that if you started out as a lawyer and you hate it, the theater welcomes you, but you have to bring something to it. And sometimes it's just intelligence, sometimes
Hmm.
it's money if you're going to be an investor, because all of a sudden I made a lot of money in the dry cleaning business and I hated it. Now I want to do theater. Well, go ahead, bring your money, but
Yeah.
also know that you need to learn a new business. So again, if you're good at sewing, doesn't
Yeah.
make you a great wardrobe person or a great designer. You may have to study with someone or be someone's assistant for a while. Just go for it though. That's the exciting thing. You have to go for it.
Well, yeah, and to add to that, these other careers might just lay the foundation that will support your
Mm-hmm.
your overall artistic creative goals. Yeah. So you may work a job from 5 to 10 years, and sock away all of that money, and maybe invest it into something that will sustain and support your creative endeavors. But you have to think about that too. Like, if you could not obtain a grant, like, what could you do personally that could sustain your creative pursuits? And those are more
Right.
conversations that we should have too, because then you feel a lot better about all of the choices you make. Like, I definitely said to myself when I moved to Philadelphia that I wanted to be well rounded in arts and culture. And the reason I was so general about it is because that way I didn't have to feel like I was on the wrong path if I took any sort of opportunity in arts and culture. So, when I worked in box offices, or admissions or any, whatever we call it, guest services, patron services, anything like that. I said, okay, this is front of house operations for theater. So
Mm-hmm.
all of this is something I need to understand,
Right.
if I'm going to run a theater. So this is why having this job is valuable. Customer service, the retail jobs are valuable because customer service is an act. You are putting on a face and you are resetting for every customer, like your audience of one, and you engage them for a short period of time. It's like you can decide, do you just want to ring up this transaction, or do you want to, or can you make their day, or can you do something and challenge yourself? Like, I'm just going to smile at everyone today, and I'm going to say whatever, and see what happens in there. Like, those are interesting exercises that you can then kind of take to your creative
And
artistic
then,
pursuits
and this
as
is,
well, you know.
at least for me, this is a culmination of what you're talking about, Jonelle. That after you do all of that, after you do your internships, your assistants, your education, your expertise that you're bringing to it, you put all your, your creative thoughts, you put all that together. The bottom line still is we have to have high standards about what the finished product is going to be like. If it's good enough to say, I sang sort of on key, then I don't know that you belong in the professional theater. It's everyone I know, as good as they are, who win the awards, are still taking classes. They still go to vocal teachers. They
Yeah,
still study their instrument if they're in the orchestra of an orchestra pit.
always be
Always.
learning.
And fine
Yeah.
tune your skills.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in finance and just want to be an accountant for Disney, well, do you know how to do QuickBooks? They may not ask you to do QuickBooks. Learn QuickBooks. The more you can do when you have the free
Mm-hmm.
time, the more you bring those skills and you become valuable to the theater, which then becomes valuable to the society. So, and
The more you know. Do
on that
do
musical
do
note,
do. And that's a great, yes, and that's a
yes,
great place to end it. So that's the business, as a season draws to a close, as we open the books on a new fiscal year. We say goodbye to you. The Business of Theater, a working title.
twice.
I'm Darnell Radford, and we will see you at the theater. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.